Happy holidays. Hello, everybody. I'm Rich Bowers for The Jump. And today I have the dynamic duo back with me, Charles Dunn, Sydney Morris. Good morning, you two. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having us on, Rich.
I'm doing
Thanks.
good too. I love the dynamic duo.
There you go. That's going to be your taglines now.
Uh-oh.
We have a lot in store for our conversation today, and I'm calling this almost the versus edition. Let's start with the first one. Elon Musk versus advertisers. So you may have heard recently, Elon had a little bit of an outburst at Jailbreak Summit. This stems from him making an endorsement of a conspiracy theory, and then in turn saying that advertisers are dropping out of X platform because they're trying to blackmail him into bankruptcy. Yes, as crazy as that sounds. Right. So with all these questionable decisions by Elon Musk leading to advertisers pulling out of X, formerly known as Twitter, Sydney, what was his outburst about? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, first of all, this doesn't shock me in the world of Elon. But Elon got into some serious drama during an interview at the New York Times Deal Book Conference. So basically, a bunch of big shot companies stopped putting their ads on X after Musk supported a post that was really offensive, and it caused basically a huge uproar in the corporate world. So Musk admitted that this post was a bad move on his part. He did end up admitting that, calling it the worst and I guess dumbest thing that he's done. But instead of trying to win back those companies that pulled their ads, he went on a bit of a rant at that summit, telling them to basically go elsewhere. So that's not all that happened. So during the interview, he also talked about how he's not a fan of labor unions and how he tries to control which news outlets to get more attention, and how he faced criticism for his trip to Israel because he did seem to support he supported a lot of hurtful comments on X. So it's like a mix of him causing trouble with all of his social media stuff, not being too friendly to certain groups, and being pretty blunt about it all. So it was quite a day for Elon during this summit.
It certainly was quite a day, and it kind of reminds me of TV shows that are out there where the very powerful, rich, and famous individuals feel like they could just get away with anything and throw their money to make up for it. Right.
Yes.
One thing that you mentioned is he's losing advertisers. I know Disney was somebody that was a company, Bob Iger, the CEO, that he specifically attacked. Where else was he losing advertisers, or what other groups?
Basically every single Fortune 500 company, it seems like. Meta being one of those. I know all like Coca-Cola, all the Coca-Cola products are off of there. Almost every other social media platform has pulled their ads from X.
And I also have IBM, Warner Brothers, Discovery, Sony, Comcast as well. So left and right, obviously a bunch of people leaving. And then, as you mentioned, something that was unique, he is actually throttling loading times for links to certain newspaper websites, which is completely wild, right? Let me kind of pause real quick before we go into advertising impacts. Charles, did you want to add anything? I know this was a hot topic that we were discussing about before coming on here.
So I have many thoughts on this. Not many of which are appropriate for this podcast, but but there's two ways to kind of think about this situation. The first is Elon Musk is obviously a very shrewd businessman, and there's a chance this is all an act, where in the past he built himself up the persona of, I'm the science genius who's going to save the environment with electric cars and rocket ships. And now that market has kind of saturated, he's pivoting to targeting the shock jock trolls to kind of like build an audience with them, potentially for monetary or political gain. If that's the case, I think that's kind of a poor financial move, because internet trolls don't spend as well as suburban wealthy people who want an electric car. So I think that's a poor financial decision. But if all of these outbursts are genuine, I think it speaks to a lesson that even us mere mortals can learn. And that is log off. Just log off. If you build your entire personality about striking back at your haters online harder than they struck you, that is a battle you are bound to lose. There is, you will never not be criticized, especially on Twitter. Twitter is a criticism machine. Do not let, social media is poison if you think about it that way. That is my advice to everyone, including Elon Musk. Log off. Just log off and do not just log off and run your businesses. Please, your board of directors are begging you to just log off.
I wonder what his screen time is, because you can just see his transition and his attitude recently. I feel like he's probably constantly scrolling on X, and it's just getting to his head. He's got a lot to say, and he's not saying it in a good way.
It's just a point where, if you're just saying things to provoke a reaction, to prove that you're more than your haters, you're never going to win that battle. It's bad for you, for your mental health.
Yep.
And I appreciate you both keeping it PG, unlike Elon. Something that he also said at this summit, ironically, free speech isn't free. It's going to cost a little bit. Maybe he should listen to that a tad. But let's talk about, what does he mean in terms of the advertising for X? If there is a drop in advertising for X, and by the way, on a contrast, Meta is expected to have a 20% growth in Q4 2023 in advertising revenue. Obviously, a flip side for X here. How does X go about trying to make up for some of that or all of that lost revenue? Sydney?
Yeah, so there's a few things that through my research that would probably we'll see Elon go towards is diversification of revenue streams. So a lot of social platforms are already doing this, where they explore alternative revenue streams beyond just advertising. An example of that is subscription services. So we might see something like that, diversifying market reach as well. So expanding into new markets or demographics, as Charles said, probably more so on the troll side with X. And then also just cost reduction in general. So focus on reducing operational costs. So employers and improving internal efficiencies or restructuring their operations. So we might see a collection of all these different things in the future with this revenue loss.
And thank you for sharing that. It's interesting. I feel like almost they've went through some of those, right? When he first acquired Twitter at the time, a lot of cuts, right? Actually telling people that if they're not sleeping in the office, they can leave permanently. They did try the blue check mark, which you paid for and anybody could be verified, which we saw how that turned out. I think he was trying to release a subscription for $1 for the everyday user. He did say during that same summit, businesses must buy a subscription starting at $1,000 a month, or else their post won't be recommended. There's a lot going on at X. It is a soap opera basically, and interesting to see where that goes. I do want to jump to the next topic because this one is also incredibly exciting and interesting, the way leaders of these companies are behaving. Let's go to Epic versus Google. Charlie, just yesterday, hot off the presses, basically, in the showdown, the judge said that Google Play billing systems is an illegal monopoly. Before we get to it, I think it's important to realize that this is a little bit of a deja vu case. Back in the day, Epic also went after Apple. Can we start there and then we'll work our way to where we are now with Epic versus Google?
Okay, so both of these lawsuits stem from the same the same issue that Epic has been fighting both of these platforms about. and that is that Apple and Google do not allow third-party applications to have their own storefronts. Everything that you purchase on one of these devices comes through the Apple Store or the Google Play Store, depending on your platform. And they take a 30% revenue cut out of anything that is sold on these stores. You can't so in the case of Epic, it's the Fortnite, it's the Fortnite store. The Fortnite, you're buying skins and emotes in Fortnite. All that has to come through Play Store, Google App Store. 30% goes to Apple. 30%
so Charles, just a heads up, just in case people are listening who don't play Fortnite, skins are basically kind of costumes for your usable character. And then a 30% kind of rake, that every $10 spent, $3 goes into the pocket of Apple or Google, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
so cool. Now, no developers like this model. Obviously, the people who make these products want to keep all of their money. That I hope I don't need to explain why.
Makes sense.
And so Epic actually has kind of the clout and the power to challenge them on this, because Epic is one of the biggest game developers. One of the biggest revenue.
They're certainly popular right now. Yeah. Everybody's played Fortnite.
Everybody's played Fortnite. And so what Epic did was they deliberately broke the terms of service of these platforms and launched their own third-party their own personal way of users spending money that bypasses these digital storefronts. This breaks their terms of service, so naturally Apple and Google kicked Fortnite off the platform, and in return, and that triggered Epic launching both of these lawsuits. Then Epic released a Fortnite trailer for their lawsuit, in which the characters from Fortnite reenact the Apple ad from back in the 80s, from the 1984, where they throw the hammer at the screen, which I've never seen a trailer for a lawsuit before. That was that was a weird one. So
Charles, let me pause real quick just to catch everybody up here, right? So basically, Epic builds video games in essence, and they're putting it on the mobile platforms for users to purchase and use, right? Apple and Google both are taking a 30% stake on everything purchased that goes into their pocket away from the developers.
Yes.
Epic obviously losing a lot of money, as we know that mobile gaming is increasing year over year in spend. So Epic, and here's where kind of some of the childish behavior, but obviously I can understand some of the reasons why. Epic ends up saying, hey, okay, let's put it on these platforms, but then we're going to do it our own as well. So that way people can play or purchase through our own store. An email went out that when Epic did this, the CEO or someone in the C-level says, say nothing at all to Apple or Google until it ships, knowing obviously full well that they're breaking that contract. That of course they do. And then so at this point, starting with the Apple court ruling, right? So in the first one, Epic versus Apple, they said that the Apple Store is legal and not a monopoly, but that was based off of a judge alone, right? No, Jory?
Yes. So that's one of the two key differences between these two cases, and why I think Epic won the one against Google, did kind of lost the one against Apple. Like the Apple one was a little bit more, yeah.
And the Apple one, so the ruling, the judge says, just was told to ease up on the way payments can be made. And that's where we get, as an example, I know when I saw this, I said, I need a little bit more clarification. Charles, you might be able to help. But the good example that I saw was, think about purchasing Netflix. Netflix, when you go and click on it, it ends up you have to buy the subscription or the monthly plans through its own website. If you notice, it tells you to go onto your own website as opposed to through the app.
Yes.
Right. So that was the way to do it. The 1984 parody for the lawsuit is insane. But keeping on time here. So we know that Apple somewhat won the first one against Epic, however you want to look at it. Google not coming out as definitely not a winner, and also not looking good at all in terms of probably just the way the public's looking at them. So can you talk a little bit about how that's turning out?
Okay, so the two big differences between why this lawsuit went so much more into Epic's favor, I think, is, first of all, it's a jury trial, so that you had to convince a jury of who's guilty here rather than a judge who's like really just kind of like interpreting the strict letter of the law. And the second thing was that Epic had a lot of evidence against Google, specifically because Google was doing a lot of backroom deals with other parties, other platforms, other like hardware holders to fix these prices. I don't really want to say fix prices because that implies something a lot more illegal, but something shady was but what Epic was able to do was convince, the jury that Google was being very shady about this, being very anti-competitive. So the appearance of an anti-competitive monopoly, I think it was really strong evidence that swayed the jury in this case. Because under the strict letter of the law, yes, this is an anti-competitive monopoly. But the American judiciary has a long tradition of not really interpreting the law in that way. Which is why we have a lot of these things that are technically monopolies, but don't get but the laws on the books don't really get enforced. But in this case, it really showed like what can happen when platforms have this total control over an entire ecosystem. You get Google giving sweetheart deals to certain manufacturers. Email chains where Google executives said that they were scared of losing revenue to Epic specifically. So, whereas the Apple case was very technical, the swaying evidence in this one, I think, was the behavior of Google, frankly, and that swayed the court of public opinion and the jury, I think.
So great rundown. So basically, Google was afraid of the contagion risk of Epic, that others will then do the same exact thing, branch off and do their own stores, right?
Yes.
And so in almost retaliation, I believe Google is calling it user choice billing. It has been changed to HUG deals, HUG deals, to make it seem not as shady, I guess.
Yep.
And so what they were doing was they were saying, hey, look, I'm going to pay developers or other platforms to not pre-install any other stores.
Yes.
Right, onto it. So thinking about other phones, right, having things not pre-installed over there. And so basically what ends up happening is they're blocking anything else succeeding. And that's where that comes into play. What you just shared is that there's no other way for people to get out of it. And that is where that definition of monopoly kind of comes from, right?
Mm-hmm. And this is a potentially very significant ruling because you have Microsoft, who wants to get their Xbox gaming app. They're really pushing their gaming streaming service, and if that app could be is no longer forced to not compete, forced to not be able to compete with the Google Store, or even this ruling could even affect the Apple Store, even though Apple won the other lawsuit. So
go back to it.
Yeah, this is a very significant ruling that could open up the competition for these mobile app stores. And for the record, Epic did not do this out of the goodness of their heart. They are doing this because they want that 30% cut. They are doing this for money.
It
But
adds up. Yeah.
it might even be something that benefits, as I said before, us mere mortals.
There you go.
We might actually see some benefit from this. Who knows?
And this has been going behind the scenes for years, right? So, and about this hindrance in terms of creative innovation, right, for developers, because they're getting this huge chunk, and especially when they first start out, they don't have the money to lose that. Other little piece, and I do want to get to our final topic. We'll do a little holiday bonus time as we cover this topic. But in this Google case too, the judge said that it is deeply troubling the readiness to destroy evidence relevant to this case, some of those emails, right? Charles, do you want to add anything on that before we jump to our final topic?
That's pretty shady. That's pretty shady. Again, that's kind of why I'm guessing that it was Google's behavior, the behavior of the executives responsible for these decisions that probably swayed the jury. That doesn't look good.
I agree.
You want to add anything, Sydney, before we jump?
I just think what the jury's conclusion just shows kind of the normal society, and how they feel about these executives and these big companies having all of this power. So I was not shocked with what the jury concluded.
Imagine us doing that at the ground level for our roles on either side. Don't say anything and ship it, or hiding things. I can't imagine the results. Again, we'll go over time here just because we won't be back until 2024 with our last topic. And this is going to be jailbreakers versus the AI models. By the way, extremely interesting. Basically, well, you know what, Charles? There's researchers from Yale and Robust Intelligence. They found a way to really tap into these large language models, right, including ChatGPT. Mm-hmm. Before you go into explain the situation, just in case, in this scenario, what does the term jailbreak mean?
So, in the larger context of tech, jailbreak just basically means bypassing inbuilt security features. If you jailbreak your iPhone, you can download things that the iPhone you wouldn't normally allow. You can just run programs that Apple doesn't want you to. If you, in this context, jailbreaking a language model is bypassing the pre-programmed behaviors and getting it to do to repeat text that it was forbidden from regurgitating. So
perfect. And so what happened here, and how did it go down?
The jailbreaking language models has been it's what people have been doing constantly since these things came on the scene. Like, you're going back to the internet trolls, they have boundless attention to ruin other people's lives. And so getting the large language maybe that's a bit dramatic, but the internet will always try and find ways to break the rules. Mm-hmm. And so the people who make these language models have to have very creative controls, very robust controls to get the model to say, as a language model, I cannot do whatever. So, and the jailbreaking is, what is the command to get the model to say things that would normally be hit by that filter? And the reality is, you're never going to solve this problem. This problem is unsolvable. Language models do not behave in a way, and I mean this 100% literally, no one knows how the language models work. No one knows. Identically, that's the nature of a transformer model. No one knows how they work. They're too big. They're too complicated. There's always going to be some creative prompt that will get the model to spit out some instructions for violence, horrible things to say about other people, or the copyrighted material that the model was trained on that legally it cannot have been trained on, that legally it was not supposed to have been trained on. And the innovation of that study is that because models are reinforced with can be reinforced with appropriate text.
Mhm.
If you train a model on getting horrible outputs from another model, you can automate the process of jailbreaking a model to accelerate the returns of figuring out what kinds of prompts will get the model to spit out the naughty words.
Perfect use for this time of year.
Yeah, no,
So, okay. And so just so you know, this wasn't just ChatGPT, though even what you're saying is AI is being used to jailbreak AI models, right? ChatGPT, a 42.5% success rate when they were trying to jailbreak using this. Anthropic's Claude 2, 61% success rate. So interesting, nearly a 20% increase there. Keeping again in mind, we are certainly over, but Sydney, I would love to hear your thoughts on the security aspect, maybe even commenting on the fact that we don't know what's happening in the transformer.
I was going to say, based on research, there wasn't a lot of answers to how to figure out the security problem. There was a professor that they interviewed in New York about what's going on with the jailbreaking and stuff. And he really didn't have an answer. He just says, we need to figure out a way and design systems that are going to just put a stop to it. But there was nothing deeper than that. So it's funny that Charles also said something very similar about how no one knows how to solve this one, which is, I think, a horrible problem to have.
You know what? Then we should pause everything and try to figure that out first, right? No.
Yeah, maybe that had to do with our episode a couple weeks ago on what's going on with OpenAI and Sam and all the leaving stuff. So, because it's still up in the air of what happened with that
and
why.
We'll have a couple weeks to find out a little bit more. So, Charles, Sydney, happy holidays. I appreciate you always joining me for this. And for The Jump, I'm Rich Bowers. Take care, everybody. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Bye.